Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Robert Alboni. I'm a licensed broker. I live in Ensenada, so I've been enrolling people into Medicare plans that live in Mexico for 5 years now. But nothing has ever been available for the people that live here in San Felipe because the closest doctors are in El Centro or Imperial County. So now they opened a new plan that starts in January, and it's Medicare Part C. This is not a supplement. A supplement is where you pay an additional money to cover your 20% or your admittance fee when you go into the hospital. And a supplement doesn't cover drugs. This plan combines A, B, and D. So you have to have Medicare A and B to be eligible for the program, and I have handouts on that. It eliminates all the deductibles on the prescription drug plan, the admittance fee when you go in the hospital, and the $405 on Part B. There's a lot of different benefits on here. I'll go through them real quick with you. Is that if you have primary care, you have to be assigned to a doctor under this program. It's managed care. So if you go to primary care, you have to have a doctor that's in the Imperial County. If you go to the doctor, there is zero copay. If you go to a specialist, it's $5. The hospital maximum copay is $300. Eliminates the $1,319 admittance fee. So you pay $100 for the first day, $100 for the second day, and another $100 for the third, so it's $300. And then the rest of the 90 days you're covered at no cost. Emergency and urgent care, this is why I'm here, okay? I'm here because you can get emergency and urgent care here, and hospitalization and transportation. Emergency is $100. Urgent care is zero copayment. So if you go to Abasolo or a clinic over here, there is no cost to you. And if you need an ambulance to go to the border, it's $125. So that's quite a reduction in what's being offered to you at this time. It also includes a dental plan through Delta Dental. It's their basic plan. I'm not a big fan of dental plans, but it is there. You know, if you would rather go to a dental. I already told you about the ambulance. It also covers acupuncture and chiropractic, and unlimited visits. Acupuncture is $5. Chiropractic is zero copayment. We have a telephone teledoc. I don't know if you're familiar with that service. It's where you can call the doctors and the nurses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. So it's a convenience, so something happens and you need to know what to do, where to go, you can just make a telephone call and they'll be able to assist you. There's one of the most popular things about this plan. And I tell them about all the great things and how they lower their co-payments on their plan and how it's available for them starting $1 off your allowance. So I ordered that, then I would have $33, now I'd have $23 left. Then if we got aspirin, that's $3, or ibuprofen, that's another $3 then I would have $20 left. And then you do that every month. The only bad thing about it, it doesn't roll over from month to month. You can't say, well, I didn't order anything last month, so now I got $66. It's $100 a quarter is how it figures out. And then it also covers Part B or Part D prescription drugs. Part D prescription drugs is there's no deductible on the drug plan. And just a brief, for the people that don't have Part D, Medicare requires that all plans, it will save you money. So If you get a 90-day prescription, you only pay 2 co-payments. So that would be $90 for insulin for 3 months. And I don't know anybody that can buy insulin, name brand, because there are no generics, for $90 for 3 months. So that's a pretty good benefit for people that are diabetic. And on the, there's unlimited visits for podiatry also. So for a $5 copayment. So that's the basics of this. I'm here until December 7th when open enrollment is no longer available. Some people can enroll year-round because of their income level. We are Medicare and Medicaid. So if anyone has Medicaid, Medicare and Medicaid approved, we are also LIS. If you don't know what LIS is, if you're living on Social Security and you're on the bottom run of the Social Security, we file a form to the government, and it's a state agency that pays for this. And it's not Medicaid. It's just for low-income people, and they can get the benefits with 0 copayment. So that's just at the table as long as I see your Medicare card.
What are you charged for this, please?
There is no cost for the plan. The plan is completely paid for by Medicare. And this is Medicare. It's not a supplement. You don't lose your Medicare. You just.
The question is, what do you charge?
I don't charge anything either, but they pay me.
Okay.
I don't work for free, by the way.
Is this simply an expat program, Part C or whatever you call it? Is it just for expats?
It's for anyone that has Medicare A and B.
Even in the States?
Even in the States, yeah. Now, the money comes from Medicare. It's paid for by the state. There's no premium. I don't collect any money. Leave your credit cards home.
Excuse me. Question, you were talking about the primary doctors. Do you have to have one in Imperial Valley?
But I'll answer any questions you have as far as the emergency care and the other benefits you receive when you're done. Okay? Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, as usual, I'm going to comment on a couple of things and then we'll open the floor for questions. So I think our meeting is scheduled to go from 10 to 12 and you know, maybe we'll get done earlier than this. Anyway, the first thing first, the financing update. As I stated in the last developer meeting that I would give you a monthly update via the HOA website on the progress of our financing with the Summers Company. An email from Stephanie because I've been pressing her for a closing date, and this is a quote in her email back to me, was Baker McKenzie's working diligently to complete the due diligence of a review of all the assets. I'm scheduled to speak with them next week to review the new closing date. Unfortunately, we don't have a firm date to give you to deliver at the developer meeting today. However, the owners should feel good to know that we are very close and that we have a strong plan to move forward. So, I mean, I've heard, I've been in regular contact with Stephanie. I'm very frustrated with her. The Baker McKenzie are people that we know very well because they're the biggest law firm in the world. I mean, they've done a lot of work for us. They've got 2 major offices in Mexico. They've got one in Tijuana, and Pepe LaRoche is the senior partner there. He knows us very well. He knows this property very well. He's done a lot of work for us. He was a person, her bill is going to be at least $250,000. I mean, a Baker McKenzie partner, 1 hour of their time is a minimum of $750 to $1,200. So for those of you that are familiar familiar with some of these large legal firms, I mean, that's the kind of money they charge today. So anyway, she's having them, we have uploaded, she's had our document room for a year. Now, our document room has got tens of thousands of pages of information in it. Every title we have, every release of condo regime documentation, it's all there. All the financials are there. But Baker McKenzie sent us a book, 38 pages, saying that they want to create their own document room, and would we upload in the order and the amount of paperwork and really the intricacies of doing business in Mexico. And I think probably because of her investor group, they really probably pressed her to say, how do we know that you have looked diligently at everything? And, you know, we know you've said that your people internally have, but we wanted an outside opinion, and I think that's probably why they hired Baker McKenzie. I was happy they hired Baker McKenzie, because if they would have just hired some local, you know, two-person law firm, I would have really, that would have been about it for me with them. So anyway, she continues to tell us the deal's going to get done. We've told her that how harmful the delay has been to the company and to the owners that we have obligations to. The company's also continued to reach out to other investment sources, and I'm actively in the infrastructure in La Ventana del Mar. And we'll continue to give you updates on the website on a regular basis. These things have to be done, in my opinion, for us to really go back into an active marketing program. If we don't have these things under construction and being finished, as I spend marketing money to bring people here, they ask, well, what happened? Everybody understands the recession by now, and because a lot of people were touched by it. And they ask what happened, you explain it to them, and they say, well, you know something, when things get back underway, we'd like to take a look again. Well, you've just wasted a whole lot of marketing money and you haven't closed anything. So the dedication of time and interest has really been to get the financing in place and completed. And it's been a tough chore, a tough process to take everything over. But anyway, the product that they were using for the plumbing in the condos was produced by a manufacturer by the name of Nivco. Nivco is a very old company. It's over a 60-year-old company. They're in Elkhart, Indiana. And they have a flexible piping system, and that's what was being used for the condos. When we found out that the condos were having, a number of them were having numerous leaks, then we started to research things, and fortunately, my good wife, Doreen, worked harder at the research than the construction company did. And we found out that there were some outstanding lawsuits from Nivco with other development activities, and not dismissed the case. And finally, so just to give you an idea of how fast the court system's working in the United States, we filed a motion for the judge to review the case on December 19th, 2000. They originally filed November 29th, 2016. Our attorneys filed an answer to that on December 19th, 2016. And August 10th of 2017, the judge finally ruled in Mikasita's favor to accept the request for a jury trial. So on October 18th of 2017, we filed the initial disclosures to the court and to the opposing counsel. There's not a timeline for the trial. My plan is if we get a decent settlement out of it, we're going to go back in the condos that have had these leaks and just repipe them, repair them. And I've got a plan to, you know, how we're going to deal with residents as we have to ask them to move around a little bit. Condo insurance. We just want to remind everybody that's a condo owner that, according to Article 37 in our regulations that we ask that you make sure you get an insurance policy for your personal contents. We do have, the HOA carries insurance for the outside of the buildings, but there is insurance and coverage available in town with some of the various insurance agents in town, and a number of you have content insurance with them, but the content insurance also will cover water damage, theft, and fire. So we ask you, if you don't have it, it's not that expensive, but we ask you to look into that. Comment on the golf course. Golf courses continue to struggle because of our, probably drill one new well, and then put all those wells on a regular maintenance program. Because we don't have the financing in place, and this is the end of the assessment for the current assessment period, we are going to have a vote on extending the assessment for another 2 years with the assembly meetings for La Ventana de Mar and the Las Villas. Their general assemblies, there will be a vote to continue the $469 a year annual assessment, which of course entitled, they can, if they don't golf, they can sell the golf pass. It entitles them a free round of golf every day, and so it is very inexpensive golf. Anyway, to help assuage that whole process, that I've agreed, we'll thank Gary for that because he was the arm twister there, but in the end I agreed with Gary, it was a good idea. But I mean, that's a good example of supervisors at work. I mean, these guys really do work at this stuff, and they came up with something. I said, you know, I think it's reasonable and something we should do. We had our annual golf charity tournament last week. It was successful. We raised about $5,000 for the Universal Golf Foundation, which is for scholarships for kids in town. And it also helps support the Baja National Champion rowing team here in town, which we're very proud of. And so I want to thank the sponsors, the players, the volunteers. We had a lot of volunteers. You guys were great about that. We had a volunteer group on every hole to make sure there wasn't any cheating. So because we had $4,000. It's a fun day because we get kids. I've got one, Paul Lindsay, one of our owners, who brings computer backpacks every year, about 15 of them. And we do a deal with the schools downtown to have the kids write an essay as to why it's important for them to continue to go to school. And then there's a group of teachers and principals that review the essays, pick the top 15, and give the backpacks to those kids. And then they come out here and we do that. And a couple of other things, so it's really good to get the kids involved and, you know, encourage them to continue the education. So, let me comment on commercial fishing because that is, most of you know, it's been a big topic here in town. We've seen heat to the baby porpoise. Of course, the fishermen want to use the gill nets because the gill nets capture the tatuaba. They're not interested in the vaquita, but the tatuaba they're interested in because the bladder of the tatuaba, called a bulchi, is worth in this marketplace $5,000, and by the time it gets to China, it's worth $25,000 a kilo. So it's created a black market for capturing this bulchi and selling it to China. And it's got very high levels of notice around the world. As you guys may know, that DiCaprio was in Mexico City. Leonardo DiCaprio was in Mexico City meeting with President Peña Nieto and also Carlos, who are endangered species in their own country. And Mexico has come under a lot of attack, because that's not been the case with these two endangered species here in the Sea of Cortez. Anyway, the commercial fishermen guys are still allowed to fish legally with nylon nets, which the which the Tutuaba and the Waikita can get out of, as well as the sea turtles, and the Chango net system, which is a relatively new net system for these guys. And they're not allowed to fish up here in the northern part of the Sea of Cortez anymore. That's permanently been banned from them. They have to fish south of the marina. Try and breed them in captivity to help rebuild the population. And once the conditions would allow, they would be released back into the wild. They set up an offshore Waikita Care Center with a tent and 2 large pools and ultraviolet filtration systems, veterinarian facilities. And then finally on October 20th, they caught the first Waikita that was ever caught and put in captivity. Unfortunately, it was a calf, a baby, and the calf was so stressed that after they did an examination and they took some tissue and did some things the veterinarians wanted to do, they finally released it because they thought it was going to endanger its life. So they're going to continue these efforts through the month of November. But then that program is done, and then it's really going to be up to the federal government to enforce this gillnet ban. We're very concerned about it because we've been very upset with the federal government about the lack of enforcement with the gill nets. Kind of together. So the gill nets, when the gill nets are out there, and these guys string gill nets together for seriously 10 miles. And the nets that are left floating in the ocean, if they get loose, or just they endanger these things, you know, if they're at their own risk. So anyway, that's what's we're going on to try and you know, we really think there is a possibility. If they would do that, the population of fish back in the Sea of Cortez up here would be enormous. So there's been a lot of talk also that they've forbidden, and that's why you see the larger ships out here in the harbor, especially downtown. But they've forbidden any motorized vehicles in the northern part of the Sea of Cortez and any of the ponga boats, etc. They have made an exception for the banana ride boats to be able to go from the lighthouse down to the marina, and they also have given instructions to everybody. Sports fishing guys are still out there. Sports fishing is still legal, but they have to fish south of the marina for right now. So we're hoping that the initiative for sports fishing does go through on a limited basis, simply because it'll bring sports fishing tourism back to San Felipe, which at one time was what San Felipe was built all around. We used to get as many as 10,000 people a year down here to sports fish Tutuaba. So anyway, that's what's going on with the fishing activity. New roads. A number of us that live in town year-round have noticed that finally we're starting to get a fair amount of road work here. The state and federal government has made some allotments for funding to fund roads, and so far from the Chetnamal area to the all the way to the Malacone down to the 7-Eleven has been paved. They're working on Calle Manzanillo, which runs from the back of the El Capitan Hotel up to the airport road. And they're also doing the road from the El Cortez up to the Pimex, which is also up to the airport road, and then part of the airport road. So it's going to be, you know, that's been a good improvement for us here in San Felipe. And you've noticed probably also that they're paving 10 kilometers of road on what we refer to as Zoo Road next to the San Felipe storage area. So those are basically basically my comments. I would like to thank the supervisory committee for all their work this year. Steve Kimmy, the president. I'd like to thank the EDR, El Dorado Ranch Committee, Ed Jones and Bob Miller, La Ventana Del Mar Committee member Denise Levin and Hans Wilschuh, and the Las Villas Committee members Martha Rezac and Gary Lambert for their service all year. We meet once a month, and those meetings usually go between short meetings, 4 hours, longer meetings, about 6 hours. So they go through the finances every month and all the other outstanding initiatives and activities. And I'd like to thank the HOA staff led by Roberto Islas, who gotten to the point of being very, very well organized and leading these monthly meetings. And we were very impressed about how quickly they got through the annual budgets this year. So it's been good. I want to thank also El Dorado Ranch Development, Jesus Olmos, who is my general director, for leading that team. Of course, I want to thank my wife, Doreen, for all she has to put up with all year. So, and her dad's here, so I know Ozzy doesn't want me to introduce him, but her father came down to visit. I can tell you they love Doreen, you know. Don't ask them about the other part of the family. So this weekend's the annual Shrimp Festival, as you guys know, so we'll have some good time downtown. And then just a couple of events that are coming up at the pavilion that you may not know about. On Monday, November 6th, the charity bingo deal will be here, and basically it's for the benefit of the DARE program, the anti-drug program, and kids, for the kids in school. Then on Thursday, November 9th, a Santa Maria Giving Fund dinner and dance featuring the Allison Anderson Tucker Quartet, which is to raise fund for the improvements in the larger Catholic church downtown. And then in December, the date has to be determined, but we're going to bring back the Frank De Silva show, which was here this summer, and I think everybody that saw it really liked it a lot. And so Doreen and I actually had a chance to meet with Frank and his wife up in the Palm Springs area over the summer. But he is the closest thing to a real Frank Sinatra, and so his music legacy is Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Bobby Darin, Tony Bennett, Nat King Cole, and what is referred to as a Great American Songbook. So, and then of course don't forget about our New Year's Eve gala. So with that, let me open the floor to questions and answers. And if you would, please come up and use a microphone, or put your hand up and they'll bring a microphone to you. Thank you.
Question, Pat. Good morning, first of all. What I got to say is nothing personal, it's business, as always. But I've been here going on 13 years now, and I've been to all your meetings, developer meetings, HOA meetings, and it seems like Miss Summers, like a lot of the other investors, are real close to signing. I mean, you always come out and say they're that close, they're very close, and it seems like nothing ever happens. And like I said, I'm here 24/7. You know, a lot of people, the snowbirds are starting to come back, but like myself and a lot of other people, we live here and we hear, I don't mean to be rude, but we hear the same kind of stuff every developer meeting. And what seems to be the problem that's going on, because like I mentioned a couple seconds ago, they're this close, they're that close, they got the pen in their hand and ready to sign, but everything falls, it doesn't happen. And I love this place, the people who live here and stuff like that, and I mean, nothing's happening. And I don't know if you have an answer for that, I hope you do, or you can tell me to sit back down. But that's my first question. After you finish answering that, I got one more, and then I'll get done. I get out of everybody's face.
Okay, fair enough question. We have had numerous, I'm going to say at least 3 groups. And believe me, these things take a lot of time. I mean, any one of these groups that we get a letter of intent from, we wind up spending a minimum of 6 to 9 months with them, putting them through all the due diligence and all the review and everything. And basically, the bottom line, Tony, is that we have a closing date and they can't meet the closing date and they can't get to the table with the money. There's no dispute about how much money, where the money, we've got use of funds, we've got everything outlined to the gnat's butt. But, you know, it's very clear and they just can't get to the closing table with the money. Typical example, Summers. I mean, I've got a signed contract. It's in a national escrow agent account with a $25 million promissory note. And I have to extend that thing every week for her to close. Because the minute I don't extend it, or I say I'm not going to extend it, the whole deal evaporates. Okay, I mean, on her word, her continued word that she's going to close, not just through her, but her broker also, then, you know, we continue to believe and pray that that's going to happen. On the other hand, you know, I've continued to engage and talk with other parties. And in every case where we've had a legitimate contract and it's signed with closing dates, I mean, I've had people, we were in a notary's office, we reserved a whole day in a notary's office for a closing one day. I had the notary there, and these aren't expensive procedures, and we were there all day with these guys, and at the end of the day, the guys didn't close, and their reason was, what was their reason? I mean, it was, the reason was, finally these guys, their tax attorneys told them if you close the way you want to close, you're going to create a big tax implication. Because you're going to have, according to the Mexican tax laws that changed this year, you're going to have to recognize a lot of income up front, and you're going to have to pay the tax on that income. And because of that, they told us that they wanted to go back and revisit the whole transaction, how the structure was set up. And after they did that, you know, a couple of weeks went by, and they finally, you know, kind of washed away. But we were all the way to the notarial office with their attorneys themselves, and they did come to the meeting, but only to tell us that they had just realized through their tax attorneys that they had a big potential tax problem. So it's been for various reasons. Look, I don't, you know, I'm not that good at making this stuff up. I mean, that's not my deal, but go ahead, second question. I mean, nobody wants to say close and back and track more than Doreen and I mean, that's the reason we've sold everything in the States and came back here permanently, just to be able to be here to see this thing through.
Thank you, Pat. Also, there's a lot of snowbirds that are back, and I just want to inform you guys that on Saltillo Road, the miles per hour is 30 miles an hour, and the residential is 20. A lot of the people are coming back and they're going through there like they're an expressway up in Los Angeles somewhere. Please, because I walk in the morning, a lot of people do their walking and stuff, and you got to be a little bit more careful on the road. It's 30 miles an hour. Ricardo Perez was telling me that they're going to have police here on where we live in our community, and they will be giving tickets. So I just, you know, advise all you the snowbirds who come in here for 6 months and leave, that be aware of it. They fixed the sign right there on Saltillo Road. It's marked 30 miles per hour, so please be careful. There's a lot of people who like to exercise in the morning, so I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Pat. And Pat, don't forget, I got your back.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm going to just kind of to reiterate this thing about the speeding because it does drive me crazy too. And I mean, that's one reason I got so upset one year when we used to let the Baja 250 before we built the gatehouse, which we got sued for because they said we blocked off a state road. But we told them it was really residential, and we were able to finally win that argument. But I had to build an alternative road for them to their dimensions, etc., which they're now paving. But anyway, the speeding. What happened in the Baja 250 incident was one of the racers hit a grandson of one of our residents and killed a kid. And I went crazy. And so Sal Fish, who eventually became a very good friend of mine, I had a very, very difficult discussion with Sal and his race crew that's lay out the course, all that stuff. And we finally changed the road, but we've got so many people, all of us in here, a lot of us over the age of 70, and like Tony's saying, if you're out there just walking or whatever, and we've had a couple of T-bone accidents already this year, so please keep the speeds down. I mean, I even notice in here in La Ventana, and it gets me upset when I see it, so thanks for bringing it up. Okay. Yes, sir.
Pat, by the way, Tony, we have had a ticket here. We had just got the car washed, and Charlotte was pulling around a mud puddle down here at the base of this road, this side road, and the police gave us a ticket. And they said, just follow us. And they took off their registration and took us downtown, and we had to pay a fine. Say again? And then, almost more importantly, we keep getting fully loaded sand trucks going down through the condos, and it's breaking the roads up. That needs to stop. Right there at the stop sign, right where you live, right where we live on the corner.
Yeah. I don't know what those trucks will be doing there.
They're hauling sand. Well, yeah, the red trucks. They're like a dual dump truck.
I'll have to check on that. You know what that is, Lisa? I mean,
one of the big trucks, get in here, is the suppliers and the food and beverage. So we already asked them, to, and also
sand.
And sand trucks. Well, I think that's when we make maintenance, and also when we brought all the stone for the retaining walls that we are working in Las Villas. That's also where we got those trucks.
There is a route that you can go on the road down towards Speeds Camp. They don't belong in the condos.
okay, I agree with that. I hear that. We'll make a note of that, and we'll take care of that.
It could also be the retaining walls, where they bring in their trucks and to build the walls.
But they can, yeah, but they can bring it in a different way. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Pat. I just want to know, do you have like a master plan, or maybe you've addressed this before? In the event that this falls through, what will happen with those units that are under construction that are posing a fire hazard and other hazards to the community?
Well, our plan is to basically bring in an outside construction group that is an expert in wood contamination and that type of thing to see how much we're going to tear out. And then once we do that, then we'll have, obviously we got the rebuilding process to start. I've got 2 or 3 people that have expressed interest in just coming in to rebuild the condos. So, I mean, until something's closed with us, like everything is kind of open and able to be talked about. So, if we get I've got people that want to help, you know, in fact, I've got people coming next week to look at the hotel that I have downtown that's 65% completed that had to be stopped because that was also part of my loan agreement with Textron. And they're gonna look at that, and if I do that on an individual project basis with a JV or something to get that finished, as long as we've got an opportunity to get these things finished, if it's not with a big group, and we have to parcel it out and do it one at a time, we'll definitely do that. So I mean, you know, obviously with the bigger groups, the plan has always been to finish them, you know.
Well, actually, my question really was, if this deal falls through as the others have, do you have a plan? Or are you going to just wait and continue to let these deteriorate more? Or at what point, I guess what I need to know, or I'm asking, is if the Summers deal goes south and we're back to square one, are those just going to remain in the condition they are now? Or do you plan on bringing someone in at that point and doing whatever needs to be done?
We're planning on bringing someone at any point. Okay, I could sign a contract this afternoon without Summers to finish the condos. I mean, if
well,
I have...
the state of them, some of them are going to be...
Well, they're not going to all be knocked down. That ain't going to happen. No. The issue is, yes, will we find somebody to finish them or go out and independently look for another partner to come in and finish them? If one of the big groups, if Summers Group doesn't come through, yes, definitely.
Hi, I'm Lynn. This piggybacks on your question. It just popped into my head. If somebody came to you and said, hey, I want to buy 4, you know, one of the actual chunks, and say, I just want to buy it, and I'll finish it, and I'll keep it or sell it or whatever, is that still possible, or are they encumbered somehow by some other contractor?
No, I mean, some of them are encumbered because when I had people that wanted to buy one of them but couldn't pay the whole thing and had to have a mortgage, then I arranged a mortgage facility through a United States company, but I had to guarantee the mortgage if the person defaulted. And with the recession, I had about 20 defaults. So I'm on the hook with that particular banking group to get that resolved. But we had a group come to us and want to buy a 4-plex, which we had available, and you know, we did do a deal with them, or we theoretically did a deal with them, but they never completed a deal. But I'm open to that. If somebody came to me and said, listen, let me finish 15 condos, you know, then we would go find 15 condos, or make whatever arrangements we have to make with, you know, people that might have a lien on them. In fact, the bank I'm talking about is, I have known them for over 30 years, thank God. And so I'd probably go back to them and say, hey, here's what I can give you in release payments, et cetera, and we would definitely do a deal with them, yeah.
Pat and Lauren, I don't know whether you have some plan to go overseas to find the investors. Because I know a lot of Chinese billionaires would willing to buy a lot of property because that can not only investment return and also allow them to get overseas citizenship. You know, so Chinese are not only interested in buying the fish, they are also interested in buying the properties.
I know. No, actually, the Asians, I can tell you how much, I have studied it. The propensity for Asians to own land, a hard asset in the United States, is almost 1.5 times stronger than the propensity for an American to own real estate in the United States. So if you look at the demographics Los Angeles and San Francisco, you'll see that the Asians out-own the Americans by 1.5 to 1 in real estate. So we've talked to a couple of overseas groups. I actually went to Singapore with one group that supposedly had a lot of great contacts in Asia. We just haven't had an Asian group come to us with a strong enough expression of interest or a letter of intent. If you have contacts, I will be happy to pay you a very comfortable commission. You would be very happy also. So make a phone call this afternoon. Tell them I'll pay for the plane ticket at closing.
Because I used to interview this kind of people.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah, they show the interest in buying overseas properties.
Absolutely, we would love to. I mean, we've had numerous contacts with Chinese. I mean, I was going to take a piece of property and make a Chinatown out of it one time. Seriously, yeah.
That would delight them.
I still have the plan. Make the phone calls for me, please.
Okay, I will.
Morning, Pat. First, I want to make a brief comment that might clarify a question from earlier, because I have personal experience with it. Years ago, right around the time, a little after the Loma Prieta earthquake in the Bay Area in 1989, me and my employer, he had a building on California Street in San Francisco. It's a 4-story building that he was trying to sell for $9 million or so. And it took 3 years to sell it. Everybody was always asking, what the hell, why is it taking so long to sell this building? It's in the middle of the financial district in San Francisco. It should be a no-brainer. But what would happen behind the scenes that nobody outside could see was that once we would get people interested and they dig into the numbers and do all this stuff, we ran into the same problem you've been running into. Number one, people would overstate their assets and wouldn't really be able to close. Or number two, they ran into 2 problems we had that weren't public. One being, well, they were public if anybody looked, but one was in San Francisco, there's a sunshine initiative where you've got to allow the sunshine to shine down on the streets. If your building's in a certain place, you can't build up. And this was a short building. It was only 3 stories tall, and there were a lot of tall buildings around it, so people would be interested in buying it based on being able to tear it down and build up or add to it. And then they would discover they couldn't do it, and they'd back out. And another one was because it happened after the 1989 earthquake. There was a lot of new retrofitting that had to go into older buildings, and people that had their buildings for sale got grandfathered where they didn't have to do it until the deal was closed. So they would run into that having no estimate of what it might cost to build these buildings up, from underneath. So deals kept falling through. Eventually one did come through, but it took over a year to close. So things like this are much more difficult than all of us selling our $200,000 home. I mean, they take a long time. Kind of connected with that, though, I'd like to ask the question in that, has the Summers Group been properly vetted to where if this deal does in fact close, that not only are they able to come up with whatever sums are required for that closing, but they're able to continually have the sums that were guaranteed in the speech from Ms. Summers, where she mentioned no longer ever will El Dorado Ranch have the financial issues it had before. There'll be a line of credit to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars and blah, 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 blah. So if this closes, will the partnership be what you had originally hoped and what Ms. Summers originally stated to us that it will be? Has she been vetted, and her companies and investors been vetted to that degree?
So Ross, the closest I can come to answering your question, and of course I'm wouldn't be evasive at all, very directly tell you. I talked with, she had one group called Lionsgate, holding, I think it's they're a hedge fund group. Okay, they're out of Atlanta. I talked to at one point, I said, look, just get the initial closing done. So at one point she told me, okay, well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the initial closing done for, it was over 40 million, and we'll do it through Lionsgate. And so I had the managing director on a phone call, conference call with me, introduced to her, by her, with a letter back to me saying that within 30 days, if we put particular assets up, blah, 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 which we did, and sent her the certificate of no liens, so they knew the property was free and clear, and they still didn't get closed with that group. As far as I've got her, what her quote-unquote master plan for financing is. I'll tell you, it's very complicated. All of my guys that are on my team, including myself, have our own masters in business and stuff, and a couple of my guys masters in finance. So we're not unfamiliar with, you know, these kind of things. But as far as I've asked her to give me proof of funds and sources of funds, but it's a combination of you know, borrowed money, equity money, bonds. I mean, it's complicated to the point of where I said, "Are you sure you really can do this, or are you able to put this together to do this?" And of course, she tells me that that's what's been taking a lot of her time, finishing her financing. I constantly come back to the same question: do you have the money to close the deal? And she assures me she does. But I have nothing in writing that shows me that in black and white. Okay, the fact that she hired Baker McKenzie and she's spending that kind of money to go through information she's had at her, ability to review and her team for a year. I'm sure that probably came, as I mentioned before, from some of the sources she's getting money from to say, how do we know you've gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and we want to have an outside opinion about it. So that's the best answer I can come up with as to why she's going through all that at that expense. The fact that she's spending that kind of money tells me she's either completely crazy to not just tell me, you know something, Pat, I don't think I can complete the deal. And at that point, my promissory note of $25 million, which is in the company name, I mean, even if I chased her legally, if she can't come up with the $25 million and she's bulletproof, then I spend a year in court and blah, 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 and a lot of legal fees. And, so at the end of the day, if she just doesn't have the money, then, the deal's not gonna happen. But I can't imagine her spending this kind of money with a firm like that. This is somebody that she can't just walk away from. If she, she's gonna pay the bill. She ain't walking away from Baker McKenzie unscathed. So she'll pay their bill. And I know from the amount of time that she's spent on this already, which is, she was supposed to, our last close date with her was February 28th, a Friday. And she called me like that Wednesday to tell me that she was engaging Baker McKenzie. And so then, when was it? Not February, I mean September 28th, and was her last close date. And she called me a couple days before to tell me about the Baker McKenzie thing. And so, again, I'm surprised, but we've done as much vetting as we can do on her and her companies and all. There's not a hell of a lot out there. I've been very tough with her broker guy because I tell him, look, you're the guy that got me engaged with her to begin with, and I would expect you guys, as part of your job as a broker, would vet her before you brought her before a client to know that she can complete a deal. And I'm not the only deal she hasn't completed, which I found out through the broker. Okay, so she's got a couple, and he tells me that she's gonna be able to close the other couple of things and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I just cross it, I don't have anything more than I've told you.
Let me add to that, if I may, if I can take the moment, because you're obviously uncomfortable with it, and probably for valid reason, but I sense another potential problem here in that if this deal does close, and the closing, at this point, you're relying on her closing it, not so much that you might back out, but I mean, what if it does close, and then it turns out that her side of the deal is all a financial house of cards that collapses, and these banks start coming after us again. I mean, that's the assurance now that I'm a little bit worried about, that maybe in your anxiety to get a deal closed, you might be accepting one that's going to get us all back into trouble.
Well, I would hope that wouldn't be okay. I don't want to go through what I've been through for the last 8 years, but again, no, I mean, it's valid concern, and I think at the closing table, she's going to have to come up with enough money that seriously, if at that point she waffles on the rest of the deal, we'll have the ability to take the deal back over. I mean,
and finish perhaps some of the.
Well, when
there's enough up front to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got your funds all. I mean, they're all basically use of fund list is there, and it's kind of in a priority thing of things that we know we need to get completed. Infrastructure, sewer treatment plant, condos, roads in here, infrastructure stuff. Yes.
Pat, a question. Other than the promissory note and hiring the attorney fees and what it's going to cost to get all the vetting, does she have any hard dollars, any earnest money actually deposited at risk?
No, she has no earnest money at risk, but the other thing a lot of these groups want you to do, and I've been through this, unfortunately, they want upfront fees. They want you to pay for part of their due diligence, their travel expenses, the reimbursables, and some of the professionals that they have to hire, and appraisals, and all of those good things, which will run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, I not paid 1 cent of her expenses, nothing. Everything that she's spent on looking at this deal has been her own money. So she doesn't have a hard money, she doesn't have a deposit with us, but we've also not had any expense allocated, any out-of-pocket expense with her.
Okay, the second question is, what happens, God forbid, if something happens to you and you're not around to see this thing through?
That's a great question. I'm serious. No, I know you're serious.
No, I mean,
it happen.
It's a possibility.
I tell people all the time, after the age of 70, you'll never know what the hell happens to you. And I'm 73, so I don't know. But some years ago, there was a movie being made in Morocco, and so we had a developer meeting before the HOA was formed. So I had some guys, the Secretary of Tourism called me because they've got a little committee that vies for doing movies and stuff like that. And so these guys came over here to make, it was called, what was the movie? Helen of Troy. And so anyway, she's telling me to hurry it up. So anyway, so this helicopter flew in, and so I said, okay guys, I'm gonna not be here too long, and someday I might not be here, but my two guys up here, I've got Doreen up here, my wife, and my CFO, my general director. So if the helicopter goes down, they'll be running the company. But so what I have set up for that is a trust account, so that if anything were to happen to me, everything's already set up so it goes into a trust, and the trustees of that are her, my CFO guy, Frank, and my oldest son. So, I mean, you know, I know Doreen is wedded to this thing almost as much as I am, and that she would never walk away without making sure, and my team would never walk away without making sure that we did everything that we needed to do. The one thing is too that is good about it, I mean, it's that because of the separation with the HOA, you know, the HOA is totally capable of operating independent of the developer. Not as a developer, I would like to leave this thing in the condition it's in. You know, basically I want to finish the work that I started. And, you know, and I pray to God every day, I say, God, give me one more day to finish the work you started me with, or I started myself with. But, so, you know, we don't have a contingency plan other than having everything go into a trust. So, that's what the plan would be. Yes?
I wasn't going to bring this up until the HOAs, but as you touched on it here, the golf assessment. My wife and I have a house and a lot here, so we're paying nearly $1,000 a year for the assessment. We don't play golf. Wouldn't it be better to spread it over the El Dorado Ranch and Levantana?
Well, obviously, for all the other...
Well, we pay it, and then they say, don't buy it from us, which, you know, is a reduced rate. I put it into the kitty every year and never had a peso back.
Yeah. So, you know, I understand the pain. There has been, that's come up before the supervisory committee once before, and this is done in some other places, basically a general amenities fee that covers all the amenities. Golf, swimming pools, tennis courts, pickleball courts, everything. And it is spread over community-wide. You know, there has been some discussion on that. There have been some resistance, you know, on the mountainside for that. But, you know, I do think that that should be something that should be continuously looked at, because the amenities are really meant for the whole of El Dorado. And I mean, if you were to take one of these amenities and have to replace it, I mean, with just the swimming pool complex over there, you know, it's a couple $1 million investment to replace it. We don't have reserves built up for that. And if something ever, you know, God forbid, but we ever had some kind of disaster that destroyed some of that stuff, the only way to rebuild part of that, because we're not going to have enough insurance, I don't think, to rebuild all of it, would be to go out with a special assessment again. On the other hand, the general amenity fee, where you could build up some reserves every year, is, I think, a smarter way to go. And they do that at the villages in Florida, where they've got like 8 golf courses, and there's a general amenity fee that's paid monthly by everybody, and that's been a proposal that's been brought up in the past by Jeff Williams.
Well, I think that would be far better. You know, you have an HOA, so everybody can take their share. You don't have to give as many games of golf away. Just put it at a reduced amount to everybody, and then they pay if they want to play more golf.
I think that's something we'll probably bring. I appreciate the comment. We'll probably bring it up before the supervisory committee again.
easy questions. You had talked about roads, and I keep hearing stuff about a bypass to the existing highway, and I've heard at least 6 different routes of this proposed bypass. Is there a bypass? Where is the bypass?
Well, I think there is I think on a map and some drawings, some engineering drawings that are done, and the bypass basically cuts off at down by the arches, and then reconnects out past the airport.
Okay, so it doesn't have...
Yeah, it's for the future, I mean, but it's before the arches, not right at the arches. But it's, yeah, you know that turnoff road there before the arches, that basically it goes that way and then it connects back up after the airport.
Okay, so it's basically, it hooks up...
It's in the plans, but there's no funding for it right now.
I was just curious, because people see this stuff on Zoo, and they're like, oh no, it's gonna go out past Marilia and down the edge of the mountain, and I'm like, no.
Okay. We really think that that's being paved that way because there's a fair amount of farming going on back by Chico.
Okay, second question. The foreclosed property that everybody voted on, is that progressing? I'm thinking of income for the ranch, like you could resell property that was foreclosed on, or development.
That'll be talked about probably in the HOA meeting, but what happened is we're still trying to we're working with condos, because they're their easiest ones. Well, they're not easy, but it's a finished unit, it's not land. So Jesus has been working with an attorney with 3 units that need to be foreclosed on. The owners are still in them. Oh yeah, try that one. And so, you know, Mexico's, it's not as easy to evict, but because it has a lien on it from the bank, that might assist us. But we just started this after working with the supervisors. We started working about a month ago. You're giving all the documents, you gotta get the contracts and the resort funding documents, and we'll get all that to the attorney. So that's gonna be an ongoing, but we've yet to be able to foreclose. But they're bank units, so the bank is owed the money on those. So even if we got it back, we'd have to pay the bank back and then resell it. So,
but it is moving, it's kind of...
We're trying. It's not going as easy, and that's why I think we're on the agenda is a vote to do the foreclosures for another, we have 1-year-old. Yeah. In the past, we used to do them in groups of anything over 3 years. Let's go and foreclose on them. Condos this year, we did anything a year delinquent.
Me? This sort of reflects back to the question on the golf course, if I may. As you may know, remember I submitted to you and wanted to submit to the golf committee last year a proposal on a new way to run the whole golf problem. The golf committee refused, from what I understand, to hear my proposal, didn't want to have anything to do with it. So my question is, I don't see why us as owners aren't enlisted in the process a little bit more. I think that we should be allowed to submit proposals to any committee that we wish to submit them to, the golf committee, or meet on occasion with the supervisors. You have thousands of owners, hundreds of which are businessmen and, you know, attorneys and so forth, that have fabulous ideas, and we're shut up at every corner. There should be a way that we can present our ideas, and it can work the other way. When the HOA has an issue or the developer has an issue, you should be able to reach out for other ideas, perhaps on ideas of financing some of the condos and finishing them, part ownership in all of them. I mean, as a group, there's a lot of things that we can do. We're never asked. And when we are told things, we're told, well, that can't come up at a developer or at a HOA meeting because everybody up north doesn't get the word, and so forth and so on. And yet we get a notice from, for example, the golf course committee that all of a sudden the contract's been changed. We voted on a contract that was then changed last year without a revote. The conditions are different than they originally were. And we were never appraised of that. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against the changes, but I am against the fact that nobody else, other than the golf committee and maybe you, I don't know, made the changes, and that we weren't aware of them, nor were we given an opportunity for our input. I mean, I have a plan to where the golf course could have been fully funded from as little as $25 a year for solar area to as much as $600 a year for people who want passes and stuff, and it came out to over $500,000 with no pain to anyone. But there's no point, there's no one to propose that to. And I know the golf committee feels like they're a fiefdom, as many of the committees in the HOA feel like they're fiefdoms. And they're unwilling and or unable to listen to outside opinions. And I think there should be a conduit for us to do that.
So Ross, again, I appreciate you bringing that up. First of all, send me the proposal, the $500,000 I'd like. The second thing is, maybe we should have a couple of supervisory days where, you know, they're not meant to be bitch sessions or anything, but they're just where we're open to the general community to, and I don't know that town hall meetings do that. Maybe they don't, but if we need to just have a couple of sessions a year where we can have an open session with ideas. I mean, I want to have ideas come from the floor, and I'm not one to just shut something down. I mean, if there's some validity to it or stuff that's worth looking at, we need to look at it. Because none of us have all the answers to any of this stuff. So, yeah. So I'm going to relook at it. Doreen tells me that, do I miss?
So I agree that the ideas need to be heard, but you're right. Instead of sending something here, something there, something here, if somebody has an idea or a question or wants to make a comment to one of the committees or to the I know there's already an ask a supervisor, so that's in place. But suppose like the golf proposal, I think last year you tried to get it to the committee before, and we got it late because the committee had already decided, we were out of town or something. But if anything like that, if it comes to me, I know how to get you the answer or get it before the committees. So, and then I would be in charge of getting you the answer back. So instead of waiting for answers from all these other different agencies, and granted, the answer may be good, it may be bad, you might not like it, but you'll get an answer and the idea will be seen by whatever committee or supervisory committee or department should see it.
And the rest of us see things that are submitted that we think, you know, we want to decide.
Exactly. Yeah, it needs to be broad. There needs to be a method. It could be through the HOA website, which I might add still really sucks. Okay, but just some way of communication. Okay, to everyone.
All right, so that's good. So the other thing I can tell you, if you want me to see something, because sometimes she doesn't show me everything, and I get upset with her and she says, well, I didn't think it was important. I say, listen, it's important. So what she does, but I can tell you, I would rather you send it to her and then for her, or just at least copy us so I know it's out there, and then she'll tell me that you may want to look at this or you should look at this or whatever. But yeah. So please, yeah. Other questions? Yes, sir. Here he comes with the mic.
Yes, we've been told by our supervisor that many of us have this problem. At the end of the year, we don't know how to pay our property taxes to the Mexican government. A lot of people are, clueless as to, where we send the money and how, because the Mexican authorities don't send out bills, and this is also true of the fideicomiso authorities. What's being done about this?
Every year, there is instructions on how to pay your property taxes in the newsletter, and it's also on the website. It's a very simple process. Taxes are usually come out around somewhere between the 15th and the 20th of June, or of January, and that's when you need to start paying to get the discounts. As you let it go to March, you'll end up paying the full amount. On bank trusts, HSBC is closing their trust department, but if you have a trust with HSBC, there's an email chain. There's only like 4 people left in HSBC trust department, and they will. You can email them, and they will send you a bill on how much you owe them and tell you, and they'll explain where to mail the payment.
Well, post HSBC or whatever it is,
Well, we did have it in the newsletter. Steve's not here, but it was in the newsletter all summer, June, July, and August. Because we got the information from HSBC. We found, and I've given it out to a few people already, and it's worked amazingly. Within 48 hours, they've gotten an answer, how much they owe, and they sent off their payment. I know it's not a great system, but that's the only system they have. But I will make sure it's in the next newsletter again. And you know what? I'll even put it in the notes too.
David, we have a question.
Ron?
Good morning. Based on the response to the gentleman's question about trucks, can I conclude that the work on the retaining walls for some of the condos is continuing?
Yes, we are working on that. I mean, actually, this week, we send all the crew to get all the stone, because, we need to go through the process to get the stone, select the stone, bring it to the place, and continue with the walls. But we are continuing.
All right, I do have a request. It's a personal request, 174, condo 174, the ground to the east of our condo is really eroding. It's uncovered the giant pipe that they put on in to carry the wastewater away. And we could really use a retaining wall there. Thank you.
We'll look at that. 174, she put a note. We'll look at it. Reese's has a note too. Hey guys, if there isn't anything else, thank you for the attendance today and have a great weekend. And thank you for just hanging in there with us. Believe me, I want to bring this thing to conclusion as fast as we can. So, but Doreen and I will be here.